welcome. Glad to have you here. I think we've got great energy. Some really cool stuff hit tonight. Some walking plans. We'll give you all the floor for a few just to give us a breakdown of what you do. I appreciate the sponsorship tonight.
Hey, sorry about that. Great. No, the timing was actually perfect. So we are powered by Panasonic technology at our facility. So pretty cool. But what we do at Walk Your Plans is we allow you to walk your floor plans at scale down to the inch in our space. We serve residential, commercial, medical, just about anybody who has a use case for walking a plan. They can come do that in our facility. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is really saving time, money, and change orders, reducing all of that up front before you go to construction. And so we'd love the chance to work with any of you guys. We offer free demos for folks that are in the industry. You're welcome to bring your teams out for lunch and learn. So if you've got any interest, please just come find us after this. We'd love to chat. So, Mark, anything you want to add?
That was perfect.
All right. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate the opportunity.
All right, let's see. We've got a cooler here, so if you need a beer, yell at James or Carl to throw you one, or you can go there. One other plug, March 5th, Homemade and Habitat is doing a project at the Capitol. I think they're going to frame a house in a morning or a day or something. Just bring awareness to affordable and smaller housing. So that's March 5th. I think the HVA has sent out some emails about it, but if you want to take part, you can come swing a hammer or just come to see the craziness. I think that's what I've got as far as announcements. Chris?
Wow. I think Ken already basically introduced himself, but I'll just repeat what he said. So Ken Nelson is with Panasonic. He's a group sales manager for ventilation. He's here to talk to us about their new OASYS system and a little bit about ventilation and ERVs. So thanks for coming, Ken.
So this is cool, and I got to tell you, one of the fun things about my job recently is that I'm getting invited to a lot of excellent BS and beers, building science and beers. So there's a lot of beer opportunities that I'm getting, which is very cool. But we also did another group, which was bourbon tasting, where I was flying into Texas every week for one day to do a bourbon tasting event with different builders throughout the Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and Austin market. So, well, I was just going to say though, if we escalate this into a bourbon tasting, you let me know. I'll be back for those if I just have to stand by the door. Anyway, so a couple of weeks ago, so Panasonic nationally, or internationally, I should say, is a pretty significant builder of houses and living spaces, right? We build about 20,000 living spaces units a year internationally, worldwide. Nothing here in the US, of course, but worldwide. In Japan, for example, they're using this OASYS system, which I just went to sleep. They use this OASYS system, which is a HVAC system, which is super, super efficient. The caveat is it requires an envelope, right? So this is not a system that makes sense for every builder. It's not a system that makes sense for every house, but we built a house here in the US, in Houston, in the Houston market. We chose Houston because it is a hot, humid climate. I was going to say we chose Houston because it's a piece of crap. It's a crap climate. They have some of the worst PM 2.5 outdoor air in the US. That hot, humid is miserable, and they have bad power, right? So Houston, the infrastructure in Houston is not as good as it could be. So they have problematic power, they have bad outdoor air, and I can explain more about that later. But so what we're trying to create is a sanctuary, essentially. I call it a sanctuary. It's a safe space in a house. So if you have customers who are compromised in any way, shape, or form, we can present you with a house that uses so little energy that our solar and battery packages can provide life environment, a livable environment in an unlivable outdoor environment. In the city of Houston, for example, when Hurricane Beryl went through there, they were out of power in some places for over 2 weeks, and people died in the house. I mean, people died in their houses after the hurricane. Had nothing to do with the hurricane, had to do with the power outage because the temperature blew up to 90 plus degrees. It was super humid. People had housing damage, not from the hurricane, but from the mold and mildew that came in the week afterwards. So with this system, this durable system, we can resolve a lot of that. I'm not going to say it's going to be perfect, but I will say it will do a significant difference, make a significant difference. So let me start the video. The video will give you the 2-minute tour. And then I have a slideshow that kind of explains it in more detail.
In today's world, homeowners are demanding more comfort, better air quality, and greater energy efficiency. That's where Panasonic's new OASYS system comes in. Designed for high-performance homes, OASYS redefines how HVAC works, offering a revolutionary approach to heating, cooling, and indoor air quality. Unlike traditional HVAC systems that cycle on and off, causing temperature fluctuations and inefficient air distribution, the OASYS system runs continuously, but at a steady pace. This helps ensure that every room in the home maintains a comfortable temperature and clean, filtered air around the clock. OASYS doesn't just focus on temperature control. It combines ventilation, filtration, and humidity management into one seamless, energy-efficient solution. OASYS constantly circulates and filters fresh air about 4 times every hour, helping to prevent mold and excess moisture. We're proving this technology in one of the most hot and humid climates. How do we do it? Using an innovative component-based design, OASYS combines best-in-class Panasonic HVAC equipment, including mini-splits, vent fans, and energy recovery ventilators, along with a unique air handler room. One of the standout features of OASYS is its calculated airflow for every cubic foot of space in the home. This advanced design ensures the entire home, upstairs and downstairs, maintains consistent temperature and air quality. No more hot spots or cold corners. High-performance builders and architects will appreciate the simplicity of installation. Our ducting is compact with innovative point-to-point design, making it easier to route ducts efficiently. When it comes to energy efficiency, OASYS is unmatched. In our concept home, OASYS reduces energy consumption for heating and air conditioning by up to 53% compared to traditional HVAC systems. And let's not forget the game-changing ease of maintenance. There's no need for replacement of all equipment in the event of failure, nor does the system need to be shut down. Instead, the faulty component can be easily repaired or replaced. For builders, OASYS offers a clear advantage. It's easier to install, more energy efficient, and comes from one trusted brand, Panasonic. With Panasonic, it's all integrated. One system, one solution, one protector. OASYS is the future of HVAC and indoor air quality. Build the healthiest homes on the market. Contact Panasonic today and become an early adopter of the next generation of HVAC.
Well, there you go. Okay. I guess there's a bit of a quick end there. So that, in essence, is what we're doing. We're doing a whole house basically as a chase. Let's take a look here at the slides.
Does this replace the HVAC system, or is this an addition to it?
No, this is the HVAC. So I don't want to say replace, but yeah, this is the
Mini
HVAC.
splits, it's an ERV, and some exhaust fans. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. No, it's
the main components. I think.
that's the 3 primary components. But when we talk about it, well, all right.
What makes it unique to Panasonic? Is it the controls? I mean, it sounds
So
like...
technically, there's little or no controls. That's one of the components.
But I'm saying those sound like components that we design for houses all the time.
Every day, these are everyday products that you're using.
So,
But the calculations are a little different in how we want to use it, right? So right now, you get a air handler unit, and you're going to calculate airflow through a small whatever and put it into 2 spots. We're going to do a bigger airflow, higher volume, lower pressure type thing. So essentially, and I need you all to take this slideshow with a grain of salt. This was created by our marketing team. So there's a lot of conversation in here about, good things, bad things. But the house is a 2,700 square foot, construction area of 3,300 square feet. We just finished this. This thing is 3 weeks old. The house is 3 weeks old. It came in at a -3 HERS. And we got the -3, it was basically a 32, HERS rating of 32, but the -3 comes with the solar and the battery packaging. Remember, we're trying to create a sanctuary, so it needs to be self-contained, so to speak, and sustainable. So, I'm sorry?
What size solar array?
I'm not sure if I've got that on here or not. I don't have the solar group. I just have the ventilation group.
I was there. But from an energy needs side, that would speak to that as far as kilowatt.
You'll see some dashboards that are going to show some snapshots of the solar packages and the battery package.
That's impressive.
Yeah, well, you know, you add enough solar, I can make just about any house,
yeah,
right?
but-
Net zero, but yeah, so just give you a little history. Panasonic started building houses in 1963. So, and again, we don't just build houses, we build multifamily, we build tower projects, we do development internationally, and mostly in Asia. We've never done anything here in the US. So it's a diversified, but we do 3D concrete, we do all sorts of things offshore. I was just in Thailand. They have a big manufacturing facility there where they're manufacturing houses in the warehouse. They partnered with a group there, and literally, you know, and the partnership, don't get me wrong, I mean, this package is Panasonic intense. So, I mean, they're Panasonic solar, Panasonic batteries, Panasonic fans, Panasonic ERVs, Panasonic ductless heat pumps, and so forth. There's a big move towards decarbonization, and we, you know, as an electrical group, we support that. Panasonic is determined to be net carbon neutral by, I think it's 2035. And we'll see how that goes. Panasonic has manufacturing facilities all over the world, but the bulk of them are already carbon neutral. It's pretty remarkable. So,
Is anything manufactured in the US?
there's all sorts of stuff manufactured in the US, but none of our stuff, our ventilation. Everything we have is manufactured in that Mexican, that tariff-free area in Mexico that's, you know, being scrutinized right now.
Yes.
So, and or Canada,
Okay.
right? But we brought everything over. Yeah, I know. We can't win. I mean, we're like, geez. And you know, there's nothing worse than being the hammer of someone else's political agenda. Yeah. So, but the ductless heat pump products are manufactured in Malaysia. But for the most part, everything is just a stone's throw. Literally, we could drive over and go look at the manufacturing facility. You know, there's all sorts of stuff. As for HVAC guys, you guys know that the extreme weather, global warming, whether you think it's human caused or not, global warming or global issues are occurring every year. They're getting different and problematic. We do want to build better houses. They need to be, if you're going to save energy, you all know this, you need to have an envelope. And everything I talk about today, it always is going to start with your envelope. So I can give you great products, but if you have a crappy envelope, you know, I can put a great big motor in a car too, but if you got no tires, I can't go anywhere. So we choose the hot, humid climate for a couple of reasons. One is they have this high temperature for a long period of time. And the house that we have, I'll tell you, our builder, Curtis Lawson, builds a beautiful structure. He built us a beautiful house. And I was talking to him on the phone. He's just like coming unglued because our Japanese teams went in and put hobos everywhere. Every single room has no less than 3 hobos that looking for stratification, temperature, humidity difference. There's IAQ sensors everywhere, and not just the single hobo brands. We have multiple brands because one of the issues with sensors is that, you know, certain brands have certain. I could put 3 sensors side by side, and you know this, Gordon. You've done this side by side, and get 3 different readings. So we're looking at multiple brands. So there are so many sensors in this house. He was not happy. So it's just not quite as beautiful as he had envisioned when he put it all together. It was, but then we cluttered it up with sensors. So part of the program is part of the HVAC is we want to resolve the stratification issues that can occur, right? We see a lot of stratification occur in townhouses, right? Where we have basically a walk-in, lower level walk-in, mid-level living space, upper level residential space. For the guys who've done ventilation, in my Northwest climate, we have a huge problem because we have basically stack effect that draws air from the bottom and runs it up through the top and then runs it out the top. Well, I got every knucklehead and their cousin with these big 4-wheel drive diesel trucks. They pull them out of the thing and idle them for 5 minutes while they warm up. And then all that diesel exhaust runs right through the house, up the stairwell and out the bedrooms. And then they wonder why, it's hard to get the kids up in the morning. So it's like, come on, you guys. So we're trying to resolve this stratification component by managing the envelope, by managing the airflow throughout the house. So the other thing that we can manage is we can manage this crazy ducting application. There's no, and you're going to see, I think you're going to see a picture, but it's point to point with basically a 6-inch R6 ducting that goes inside the envelope, that stays inside the envelope, that goes from the air handler room right to the location. You don't have splits wise, you don't have pressurization differences within the ducting. There's no balancing required where you're going from a big box to a little box to a duct and you have to balance to get the proper air to the proper space, because the fans that we use are all self-balancing. You set them for a value and then it's done, right? You set it for a value and it's done. And you also don't have short cycling where you have a return grill and you have a supply grill coming in and then you're just short cycling. I see that in the Northwest on some applications, but that's not the biggest challenge that I see in the day, but we still do see that. So the way it works, I have an air handler room in the center of we try to shoot for the center of the house. There's also plans for ramblers, if you have a rambler style, where you can split the air handler room, one on each end, because we're trying to keep the runs shorter. But essentially we pipe it into the spaces, drive air down, it comes back to a central, and it's pulled right out, all the way around. So every room gets a certain amount of airflow measured by the cubic space of that room. We're shooting for about, they said 4 earlier, but I think the reality is about 3.5 air changes of that cubic space per hour. So every 17 minutes, that room, whatever room it is, every 17 minutes it's going to be cycled through, okay?
And you're using the main air handler and ductwork is what's cycling this? This is where I guess I'm confused because you said mini
Right.
earlier.
So
I'll be quiet. And I'll
no, it's, if I don't have a good picture here,
That's all right.
So in this house, we're using 27 Whisper Green Select fans. We have 27 ducts. No, but here's the deal. 27 Whisper Green fans comes in altogether at about 105 watts of energy. 105 watts. I can move 2,700 CFM continuously through the house at 105 watts of energy. And now I have 2 ductless heat pumps. We're using 2 2-ton units in that same air handler room for heating and cooling. And we use 2 single zone because we want that redundancy. The other thing I can do is I can set one on a cooling in a shoulder season. I can set one cooling at a temperature and one heating at a temperature. And now as the temperature of the house floats back and forth, one will come on, one will go off and back and forth. So I can move that. But the reality is I have the 2 zones, and this is kind of jumping to the end, but I can come back and I can set my solar and my battery package up so I can take one zone, one of these zones with that ductless heat pump. In the case of a power outage, I can give you a livable, healthy conditions in the house. So I can still run 105, 115 watts of energy off the fans. I can still run one single zone 2-ton unit at low speed. I can't, it'll burn it up, but I can get 8 hours of use out of the battery package. Assuming whatever battery package you choose, there's different sizes. I could run it for 2 weeks off the battery if you wanted to have batteries stretched across the room. But
So where do you place 27 different fans?
in the air handler room. Oh, so this is kind of jumping into the energy cost and cost, right? I don't like throwing numbers out because every time you put numbers out, you're a liar. But in a code minimum house, they're talking about trying to about 104,000 for the envelope and the air handling and the HVAC system. For high performance, your envelope is going to blow up a little bit on price point. But literally, I can do the ERV, the dehumidifier. We did have to do a dehumidifier in this application. We argued against the dehumidifier, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the builder was adamant, Curtis was adamant, that we have a dehumidifier as the backup. I will say that the dehumidifier is basically downstream of the ERV and the objective is that it won't come on.
Ken doesn't like dehumidifiers.
I love dehumidifiers. Listen, I am all about keeping moisture out of the house, but I don't have a problem with that dehumidifier other than it skews our energy numbers because it runs and then cycles on every hour for 10 minutes. I'm like, so it skews all of our energy numbers.
Should have paid the extra $100 for the controller.
As if I had a chance. Anyway, but the money is in the envelope. I'll tell you that right now. Let's see here. Ups and downs for conventional system. This is marketing, and I'm going to tell you that this all has great value. It's going to be uniform temperature throughout the house. We're moving 2,700 CFM throughout the house. Literally, it's very difficult to get an uneven temperature. We did add an extra fan in the great room because I can't tell you how many windows. I think it's 8 windows across the top of the great room facing into that morning sun.
A ceiling fan or an extra?
No, extra, one of our fans into that space because of the solar heat gain potential. So, and you could add 25 extra. If you could have 50 fans in there because they're all running at the same temperature and it wouldn't make a difference to the occupants. You don't feel the air, you don't hear the fans. The fans are literally invisible. In the air handler room, you have basically a green board, like an insulation board around it. So you literally don't hear any fans. There's no noise.
Are there 2 fans per room generally? Because
In some cases, there are. In some cases, like the great room, I think there's 5 fans in the great room, driving air, around the perimeter of the great room.
You're going to get into specifics.
I hope. I'm trying to remember how this thing lays out.
What determines the 27? Is it a square foot number? Is it
Cubic foot. Cubic foot. Yep, and so as part of this process, you're going to go and you would send your plans to our engineering team, and they would do all the math for you. And
Is that a manual P? Manual Panasonic?
no comment. No comment.
So do all these fans, are they moving conditioned air from?
Yep.
So the two.
they're just
mini
circulating,
splits-
right?
They're just circulating. That's why I wanted to call them distribution fans, and the Japanese overruled me and said, nope, they're supply fans.
Okay, so
They're not
the mini
supply fans, they're
splits-
distribution
mini
fans.
splits are just running in the equipment room?
In that air handler room, the mini splits just run.
Fans move the air.
Yep, and then the fans draw the air by there, right? And then we have a 200 CFM ERV that brings fresh air in there, dehumidified.
Into that room.
Into the front of the room, so it's distributed throughout or diffused throughout that air as it's being drawn into the room. It doesn't go directly into the room. It goes into the, I know, it's funny.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm mixing.
It's from the room in front of it to the
Yeah.
condition.
Yeah, because I have the ERV that drops the air in there. I have the dehumidifier that has a air vent that comes into there, and then I have because we're pressurizing the attic space as well. So there's a jumper duct attic vent that drops the air into there, all right in front of that room, which goes through a MERV6 screen and then a MERV6 filter on there. And then one of the features about the ductless heat pumps is we have the Nano X system on there. And I know you don't like Nano because of hydroxylized radicals, but I will tell you that hydroxylized radicals do neutralize problematic molecular issues. And I'll tell you to Google it, damn it, just Google it. How do they work? But they only last for like 1 to 2 seconds. So the way a hydroxylized radical works is it's a positively charged hydrogen molecule. And a hydrogen molecule has polarity, and they attract other hydrogen molecules. And we have hydrogen, we breathe hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. Hydrogen molecules attract, a positively charged hits the other hydrogen molecule, which is typically attached to an oxygen molecule, which is what water vapor is made of. Bacteria, viral, VOCs, all live within water vapor of some sort. They all have to be alive. They have to have moisture, right? The old saying, if it dries, it dies. So they have to be in a water vapor, and that's how small they are. They're in that water vapor. This hits that water vapor, gives it essentially it's just a static shock, and it nulls that device. So then it realized, and this is the issue, part of an issue, is it's still buoyant in the air, but your ventilation system then will move it out. But it stays buoyant in the air. That was the big thing we found in COVID, right? There was the argument about, is COVID ballistic? Does it fall and become a transfer issue? Or is it buoyant, right? Forever they said, oh no, it's ballistic. You gotta be 6 feet apart so it falls to the ground. And you're like, later they find out, no, it's freaking ballistic. It sits in the air for 13 hours alive, and then, 6 feet, who cares about 6 feet? You walk right through it. And so anyway, but that's all occurring within that box, within the ductless heat pump, within the ductless heat pump.
Additional sort of fancy air cleaning.
Yeah, air cleaning. I don't even like to say purification. I use them where my dog sleeps, and I use them in my RV, and it does a great job keeping the smells, the other issues out. But
there's no return vent. It's just the 27 fans creating the negative pressure.
the return vent is a big open window. Essentially, it's an open window. We veined it so that you can't see in it, but it's essentially just an open window.
Blowing air out, and it has to pull it back in.
Yep, it's drawn.
Do you have a layout slide?
You're going to show us though, right?
Yeah, I'm hoping. If not on this one, I've got other slides. So this is kind of a snapshot of the house, so to speak. Here on the second floor is where this air handler room is. This is going to distribute, and these are all the temperatures that you'll see. But the fact of the matter is it was 93 degrees outside, 76% humidity in the house, throughout the house. We got it down to 77, 78, 77. I think I have it at 18, there's 1900 watts of energy. And I'll tell you that we've got problems. Again, this is 3 weeks old. I was there last week, and I have a Japanese guy that's running this. And I go in there, and the place is hot. I'm like, why is it hot? He said, oh. And I go up there, and he's got the air conditioners in heating mode. I'm like, dude, you got to flip these from heating to cooling to get, the temperature. We heat. I'm like, how do you not know this? But, they have a different system in Japan. They have automated systems or something. I don't know. But anyway, it's just sometimes, right? You just like,
But you might need it. You might have needed heat, right? Because it is cold in Houston right now, right?
Nope. No, it's cranking hot. We had it, and the reason being it was in heat is because they had that 25, they had snow in Houston. And I have a slide here where it's 25 degrees outside showing the heating occurring. So yeah, it was heat, but I'm like, dude, the house was cranking hot.
So was the thermostat set to 78?
I think so. I don't remember what it was. It was right in there though. So I will tell you that that air handler room,
Why do you have to manually set it?
on the ductless heat pumps, on a single zone, you flip from heating to cooling on ours. Yeah, it doesn't automatically switch. So it's it's not a VRF, right? The compressor has to turn one way for heating and one way for cooling. So we have to turn it to heating or turn it to cooling. I have a 4-zone ductless heat pump system in my house. I have to turn them all. You have like a minute or 2 minutes, but you turn them from heating to cooling. But you can't run 2 on heating and 2 on cooling. That would be a 3-pipe VRF. So in residential, you could do a VRF. And I mean, when I was selling ductless heat pumps, we did some VRF, but not in residential. So great distribution of temperature, great distribution of humidity. So these are some of the charts that we can show. Here is your outdoor temperature. Your red represents the outdoor temperature. You can see this was the week that it went down into the snow. And you can see here so this is the air handler room, the blue, there's little spikes. You can see the air handler room kind of taking off and adding more heat. But the heat to the rooms was pretty darn consistent. Same thing with humidity. Humidity outside was real high. Even when it got reasonably cold, although it dropped out and snowed, that's basically snow, but the humidity throughout the house stays pretty consistent. Which is what they should do, right? I mean, listen, if your heating and cooling system isn't keeping your house temperature reasonably smooth, I don't want to make it sound like this is unique and it's the only thing that's ever going to do that. That's what all of our furnaces should do. The big gain on this is that we can do it with, 1,500 watts of energy. So this was an interesting component here. Here's your PM 2.5. The red is outdoor. And this is where we make money, right? So on the indoor PM 2.5, even though the red outdoor blew up, essentially, The indoor took a little bubble, but it didn't move very much. And that's what we're trying to do in Houston. Houston, I mean, I can heat and cool all day long, but the money is in that PM 2.5. I can prevent that PM 2.5 load from going into the house and becoming a problem. This was a builder tour that we had on this day. There was some 30 people, between 20 and 30 people in there, or excuse me, 10 to 20 people. You saw the CO2 load. This is, Ted, this is what I was telling you about. I was kind of surprised the CO2 load didn't drop out faster because we're moving so much air. And it's 200 CFM. We're actually over ventilating at 200 CFM for that size of a house, but we're doing it because it's new. So we're trying to make sure we don't have anything to start actually the real testing.
Just for the interest of everyone, could you explain what PM 2.5 is and why it's such a big deal?
Particulate matter, 2.5 microns, right. So PM 2.5, in ventilation and moisture management, we talk about, with moisture management, I can kill a world-class athlete in 90 days, right? I put humidity in your house, it turns into mold and mildew, that throws out mold and mildew, you get asthma, allergies, you get that into your lungs, you get pneumonia, 30 to 90 days. With PM 2.5, it takes 20 years, right? PM 2.5 will actually pass through your lungs into your bloodstream. So that by itself is problematic because it can damage the heart. But in the long term, what happens is that your bloodstream typically goes through your blood marrow, and that PM 2.5 can get into your blood marrow and start breaking cells, right? Starts messing things up. That's leukemia. So leukemia, by the way, is no fun. My dad passed away from leukemia because he worked in he was a carpenter, but he worked with diesel exhaust, all sorts of stuff over the course of time. And if you look up leukemia, that's one of the big causes of, or is it causation or association? But anyway, leukemia is all about breathing in bad stuff. So we get PM 2.5s when we have what's it go, Corbett? Is uncombusted particulates, or
it's a particulate size that is particularly bad for humans.
But it's from combustion that puts that out into the airspace. And there was actually a data point that stay-at-home women were a 50% higher lung cancer rate for non-smokers or something like that with gas ranges or some such thing. It was a goofy number from the EPA.
Just FYI, any cooking, even with induction, does create.
Yeah, because of the stuff that you're cooking actually, heats and burns up.
Stop burning candles.
Yeah. Oh yeah. From a fan guy, I'll tell you that candles are the kiss of death. I can't tell you how many low-income places I go into and they're burning candles and they've got like hairspray in the bathroom and there's nothing more disgusting than burning candles and hairspray in a bathroom. Anyway, long story short, the PM 2.5 is part of that trigger mechanism that we're trying to manage here. So one of the things that we talk about with ERVs, and I'm going to digress into ERVs here soon enough, but one of the big knocks about ERVs in the southern climates is that they inject humid air, high humidity values into your house. So what I wanted to show here, this was taken the other day, this was when I was there. Outside it was 73 degrees, and for an HVAC guy, you know this is the worst time for your HVAC system to try to manage moisture. Outside was 73 degrees, inside 73 degrees. Outside the humidity here, this was in Houston, 87%. Inside we're at 57% coming in. The ERV was rejecting, and that's what an ERV will do, is it'll reject the excesses on either airstream. And for the longest time, we always talked about, this in the house or out of the house. I don't care. We got to quit saying in-house, out of the house. We say airstreams. I've got a supply air and I've got an exhaust. What airstream can carry more load than the other one? And it'll meet in the middle, right? But it doesn't matter which side. In the northern climates, we always talk about the high humidity in the house. But in the southern climates, our high humidity is outside. So I'll digress on ERVs and how that works. We use what they call an enthalpic core. And the enthalpic core, moisture moves through heat is moved through the enthalpic core three ways, right? There is essentially conduction, where I heat one side, it moves to cold. And by the way, the ERB core is the exact example of the 3 levels of thermodynamics that we talk about, where hot moves to cold, wet moves to dry, and high pressure moves to low, right? So I have a hot airstream with moisture in it. Hot is a higher pressure than cold. When you look up the pressures of air, I can have pressure here. We talk about stack effect, right? Stack effect is going to move. So I have a hot, higher pressure, cool, lower pressure, cold. As they go by, that pressure is going to drive vapor through that ERV core. There's 2 mechanisms to move moisture through the core. There's a capillary method, right? Because the core is like a paper material, but it's capillary. It'll actually draw, the cold side will draw through the capillary. And then there's also holes in the core. There's these little, they're 0.06 micron holes. Remember PM 2.5 is 2.5 microns? The holes that are, and I shouldn't say holes, because they're technically not holes, because the fibers of that are laid like the muscles on your arm, right? You have muscles on your arm that are put together by fascia, that are held together by fascia. Moisture will move through that fascia, right? It doesn't, or fascia, I guess my wife would correct me. But it doesn't, so it's not technically a hole, it's just moisture will move through there. So being that small, that 0.06 micron, for anything to move through there, water vapor, by the way, is like 0.53. It won't go, 0.53. It won't go through there as water vapor. It actually separates the hydrogen and the oxygen molecule. So hydrogen is the smallest molecule, all oxygen is the second smallest. The next one becomes the hydroxyl radical of all things. And I point at you when I say hydroxyl, I don't mean to I'm just the hydroxyl radical, but a carbon molecule all of a sudden is too big to pass through there. So it just continues on its way. So, and then it reforms on the other side. It's going to recoalesce on the other side after it passes through there because they're attracted to one another. So water vapor will hold more heat than air, right? And so those 3 elements are what moves temperature across. And all they're trying to do is find balance, right? In all of the earth sciences, all we care about is balance. Yeah.
That's a great explanation. Is the core that you're talking about, is this a relatively new core? Because we were talking about the original Panasonic ERV. I think we have one back there. And I remember that had a fairly low latent capacity, like it didn't transfer a lot of moisture.
So
how's this one compare?
So there's a couple of ways to get efficiencies out of a core, right? If I ask a builder, how big should an ERV be? He's going to say, well, the size of a shoebox, right? I will tell you that one of the big knocks about ERVs is they're big, right? They take up a lot of space. But to get efficiencies, literally, you have to have a core that has that capability to draw temperature from one side to the other. But to get that to really meet, it takes time. They have to be passing each other real cleanly, right? They have to take a minute. So, and I say a minute as a figurative speech, but I mean, because it's blown by there at 100, 200 CFM. So that core that you're talking about on that, I think it's the Whisper Comfort. It's actually not even as big as those paper plates.
Yeah, I can get one.
It's just a cube. If I want more efficiency, I just make it bigger. So there is some.
It's not the material so much.
Well, there is a little bit of material, and we're moving to a new material on our cores, and you'll gain, some efficiencies on it. But the reality is, it's how long can I keep that air above the other?
How big is this?
That ERV is freaking huge. That ERV is bigger than that ice chest.
But when you're done airing out the new construction with the 200 over...
I'm going to go in there and turn that thing down to 50.
And then you'll get even better efficiency out of it.
Yes, because the airstreams will stay together longer.
But you still need a dehumidifier.
Well, that was my question.
Potentially. So that's what we're testing, though. Yeah. That's what we're testing, right? I mean,
you were talking about a dehumidifier. Is that actively in use, or are you there for backup?
It's there for backup, but it's downstream of the ERV. So it's waiting for the ERV to provide, to not have that trigger point.
If the dehumidifier was not working at this time?
No.
It's set at 80.
No.
What trigger temperature for the dehumidifier?
I don't know what that is. It's what's the one you guys use?
60.
April Air. It's an April Air.
Yeah, so it's probably set to 60.
60%?
I mean, if you've got 57, they're saying it's 57 in there.
I hope it's not set to 60%. I mean, I'd like it to be like at 70%. I kid you not. I kid you not. I need the system to figure it out, right? I need the data to say this is a problem or this is not a problem. Even on
Just now, just while you're figuring it out. So
yeah. I mean, we're going to be figuring this out for the next 3 years. This is a 3-year project. This data capture is a 3-year project. So, and they're going to do all sorts of scenarios.
If it's only gonna kick in at sort of the nth moment, which is, let's say 70%, that's what you wanna see, is that you wanna see if the house can.
This is me, though. I'm not the engineers who are doing all the testing. I'm just telling them what I want to see in a data set.
Well, yeah, because that would, I'm sure others probably felt it, but that was my thinking is, you're trying to do all this in Houston, Texas, and no supplemental dehumidification, but then you said you had supplemental.
We do.
You're trying not to run it if
Right.
possible.
I'm really trying hard not to run it. I need to see how the house performs with this system. I need to believe in it. And I believe in it right now. I've seen great numbers coming out of it from an energy perspective. But as soon as you put that dehumidifier in there, your energy blows up. I mean, the dehumidifier is the...
I assume the house was relatively tight.
Yeah, it's a 1.6.
So that's, yeah.
Yeah.
I always think 1 to 2 is a realistic, except I shouldn't say that because there's some obsessive people in the room, but I feel like that's a good target.
I'm under 3.
Yeah.
But you know, and from a ventilation standpoint, I'll tell you, under 3, you need to have an ERV.
Yeah.
You need to be balanced if you're under 3 ACH. You know,
Is this the wall control for this unit?
this is the wall control.
Does it come stock with temperature sensors on both airstreams?
Yep.
That's awesome.
The ERVs always come with the ER.
I
And
don't think that any other brand does that.
really,
Does it
so
send it?
Energy Star says they all have to. So there's going to be a rising tide, right? Energy Star says if you're going to be an Energy Star rated ERV, you're going to have temperature and humidity inside and out on both airstreams. And the ductless heat pumps are also triggered with thermistors. They have thermistors on the heads, thermistors on the outside, on the both on the supply fan outside, on the inside fan. So this is exciting to see. The ERV is doing its job. And what it's all, and I was going to say about the ERV, the reason the ERV makes so much sense is because all it is 2 fans in a box, right? Everything else is static. Just the airflow's going by. There's just 2 fans pushing air past. It's not a heater. And this is a big mistake that people think is the ERV is going to provide heat to your house. It's not a heater and it's not a cooler. Perhaps here, yeah, we could say with that, right? Because everything is going to go to the middle. And I'll give you some really poor man's math, and your HVAC guys are going to scold me for this, but if something says it's 80% efficient, the way you want to maybe think about this is, so it's 70 degrees in the house. I'll do my cold climate where it's 50 degrees outside, 70 degrees, 50 degrees, 20, that's 20 degree delta. It's 80% efficient. I'll recapture
16 degrees.
Yeah, 16 degrees. So now my heater only has to lift at 4 degrees. Now on the latent side, I'm only going to be about 65% efficient. So I'm going to say 60% of that 20 degree delta. Now 6 times 2 is 12 degrees. So now I'll have to cool 8 degrees. So the latent side is just a little harder because we're really trying to work that magic with the moisture.
How do we get more latent capacity? Because that's what we need in this house.
Well, I can get you an ERV the size of this table. I was in Japan. They've got these things that are monsters.
Material method? I mean, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's a size function. It's a function of physics. The material can be a little better, but you know, when you start running a ton of water through some of that material, it also can be a problem, right? If I start moving too much water, the material will actually break down. Most of this stuff will never break down, but you can get material that's really thin. And I mean, I could tell you, I could put a piece of paper between the two and it's an ERV. I don't get much latent, but the temperature will move really fast. Let's see, where else was I going to go? So just so you know, the ERV doesn't heat the air. It just brings the temperatures to middle, right? It doesn't cool the air. It just brings the temperatures to the middle. So if you walk under a vent where an ERV is dumping air into the house in a cold climate, you're going to walk under there and you're going to go, oh, there's a cold airstream, because it's going to come in at, you know, between 2 and 7 degrees below the room temperature, perhaps. If you're in a hot climate and you walk into the ERV vent, it's going to be hot air coming in because it doesn't cool the air. It just wants it to meet the middle. I was looking for a slide. I have a slide from when I was in Phoenix with construction instruction. We had an ERV running and it was 107 degrees outside. We were rejecting 97 degree heat out. I mean, literally, it only lifted the temperature inside. And, you know, that's Justin Wilson putting monitors on each nozzle to see what it was at the nozzle, which is really the way to do it. And it was remarkable. So I got to put that slide in this deck somewhere.
So Ken,
Yeah.
Why don't you dump the ERV into your common return?
So, and we talked about that, and they want the diffusion in the room temperature before it goes in there and hits the air conditioning. So they want that diffusion to occur so it's not coming in as a stream.
So it's dumped into the room.
It comes into this hallway that's right in front. I mean, it's like maybe 3 feet in front of it.
Keep going, I'll just draw it.
Yeah. It's maybe 3 feet in front of that space, and it just pushes out. Remember, it's only 200 CFM, and it's coming through, I think it's a 10 by 10 grill assembly. It's just diffusing right in front and being drawn in at the same time. So it just gives the less potential to have a phase change occur inside that space.
Do they have testing that shows what happens if you do dump it in there?
They might. I don't have it. I mean, in Japan, they have a lot more data, and it's all in Japanese. Yeah.
So this is the layout of what they've, essentially the house they've tested it on. So this is kind of your clean room or your mechanical room. This is a wall of these vents, of these fans that go out throughout the house.
Those are the intakes, right?
This is the supply.
But I'm saying they're pulling air from that room.
They're pulling air from the center of the house.
And spreading it throughout the house. This is like a filtered open vent right here, and the ERV dumps. Dumps it essentially right here.
Yeah.
So you get mixing from the house here, ERV is here, it goes through this filter. And what you're doing is you're conditioning this small room with these mini splits, and then from here, these fans are just distributing it out to the rest of the house.
The ERV is not being distributed throughout the house. It just drops right in front of that giant 2,700 CFM return area. So there's actually, I'll borrow that back. There's actually,
How big is that filter? I mean, it sounds like it's fairly large. Right?
what is it, 5 foot? But did you see the whole? It was like 5 foot by 5
they basically
foot.
screened it, so it's most of this wall, so that you have a pretty big opening for it.
Yeah, it's significant.
That is in
like
the
a-
dust and-
You said MERV 6 though, right?
Well, it's about a MERV 6 on the screen part. The ductless heat pumps each have a MERV 6 filter on the ductless heads. So it's, it's technically filtered twice, but the reality is that curtain will take any of the dust out, and then you can literally take the curtain outside, wash it off, shake it out, whatever you want to do there. But the big filtration occurs on the ERV from outside in.
So there's no filter on the circulation.
There's 2 filters. There's the one that goes into the cold room.
The MERV 6.
MERV 6, and then there's a MERV 6 on the ductless heads, and right now that's what we have on ductless heads.
Doesn't ASHRAE require MERV 11?
On the ductless heads?
No, for home filtration, I think. Yeah.
Recirc? I don't think so. I don't think there's a specific number on that.
Check, just look at it.
Oh, but I'll definitely, like, if you said it, I'm gonna go look. Yeah, I gotta know, because I know that Energy Star wants to move to a MERV 13 on Recirc. And they wanted to see that on the ductless heads and also on Recirc fans throughout the house. And I'm like, ductless heads, when were you gonna tell us about this?
Just put air, like
Air scrubber, it becomes a scrubber, yeah.
You could potentially do that in the room, right? You could put like.
I can absolutely do that in the room. Yep. Yeah, and in my house, I have MERV 13s on all my ductless heads. I just set them on the top, so it becomes a scrubber. I mean, I have a freaking big dog. You can't scrub the air enough. Anyway. So this is, to me, the biggest value that an ERV does for you in this climate zone, because what happens is your HVAC system is not going to run at 73 and 73. It's not running. So all of that air is just going to come in and out of the door. And you have no strategy outside of that other than the dehumidifier. And that depends on how the dehumidifier is designed, right? If you're using a central system and the dehumidifier is part of that return air, it may or may not pick that up. So this is constantly moving that air. It's constantly creating that scrubbing mechanism.
And in your drawing, the dehumidifier is in that room right there, inside of it?
Say that again.
In the drawing on the board, is the dehumidifier?
The dehumidifier in our
that
case,
space, in that little?
it could be in a different application, but not in this one. In this one, and part of this, because this is like a house to demonstrate the process, we have a separate mechanical room for the dehumidifier and the ERV. So in this room right here, where I only have the fans, and then I have the ductless heads, and then I have the control. I have a lot of controls, so I can shut some fans off to see how it's going to perform, a half speed and all this stuff. It's really overdone with the different control mechanisms, but it's in a different space. Now, in Japan, they do all of that in attic spaces. They, because it's all relative to the size of the house. So I heard someone talking about a homemade project, right? I'm pitching this to the homemade people in Houston who are building these duplexes that are 1,200 square feet, which is actually a sweet spot in Japan, right? That's where they do the bulk of this. And it's essentially a broom closet. It's all done inside of a broom closet. So, and our closet is much bigger than normal because we want to be able to walk people in and look around, stick your fingers in places they shouldn't go and stuff like that. So no, in this case, the mechanical, the dehumidifier and the ERV are in a separate room, and then they just jumper duct it across. Yes?
How big is the room?
How big is the room? It's maybe
8 feet by
yeah, I mean, I know on the depth, it's going to be 6 or 7 feet because it's a full 48 inch and then a partial on the insulation board. And then, yeah, about 8 feet wide.
If it was smaller, because you didn't need to oversize it, how big would it have been?
So the ones I've seen in Japan where you cannot, you would access everything. You access everything from the window right there where the cold air return is. Everything. Ductless head, fans. I mean, you can literally reach in and monkey with it. So I don't know what it would look like in an attic. I haven't seen the attic scenarios. I've just seen the plans for that. But yeah.
So what's proprietary about the OASYS system? I mean, it seems like it's something that I could take this idea and just put more equipment. So what is Panasonic getting out of it?
That's been a secret for like 2 years.
So first of all, it has to work, right? The biggest concern for most is that it's going to work. So we'll be able to design it. We will own that design rights and the warranty on the design right. So if it doesn't work, you can come back and say, hey, it doesn't work, your math was wrong, and then somebody else is going to own that. This process is patented and trademarked. I think there's like 13 different patents on the process, but I don't know. I'm using a hybrid version of it right now in multifamily in Seattle, where they have a Mitsu cassette system on a 750 square foot unit. A Mitsu's cassette system goes right past the Whisper Comfort ERV, and then we use a Whisper Value slimline continuous run fan to provide fresh air to the bedrooms, because the code requires 20 CFM, I think it is, when you're jumper ducting of mechanical into the bedrooms. And then it's a hybrid system. It runs just, it's a fan doing distribution after the DHP fills that room full. Wait 1 second. Yeah.
I know I just stepped out for a second, so I might have missed it, and this might be a really stupid question, but bracketing the ERV and the humidity control in that piece, which I understand the pros and cons versus normal ventilation for that. Just the ductless mini split heads in a room with effectively, different branch lines going out of this room. What are the advantages of that design versus a air source heat pump where you have an air handler in that same room, and rather than these cool little fans in the wall, you have a plenum and then you got your zones going off?
It's just balancing and the point to point that you can get from the fans. And if something, the other part of it, when we talk about, redundancy and so forth.
The ability to control the fan speed going
for one.
to different rooms. And
but I only get 2 speeds, right? I get continuous and then I get a boost speed on each fan.
Right. Because you're targeting 4 air changes per hour in each room.
In each room on the base speed. 3.3.5 actually is what they're telling us. But
talk about the Swidget part too, because I think that's an important component.
Okay, so the Swidget is our Wi-Fi enabled control function, right? You can put a Swidget module in both a receptacle and or a wall switch. So we have if you're familiar with our Whisper Green fans, the boost function is a transmit receive wire. I transmit out, I dry contact that up, and now I can go to the fan to the boost position. So the Swidget module allows for IAQ trigger, moisture trigger, motion sensor trigger. I can do a timer trigger, so if I wanted to speed up at certain hours of the day or whatever. But the reality is if I have a high moisture load or if I have the temperature drops to a certain point, I could actually speed that airflow up or turn it back down. But to your point though,
you have a different thermostat down there.
right, to your point, why wouldn't I just build a manifold, right? And duct it out? But
yeah, or just like, I'm not even trying to be devil's advocate. I'm just trying to say
yeah.
The marketing pitch, someone says, all right, air source heat pump with zones, or Panasonic OASYS with
those fans,
fan speeds.
Those fans are running at 5 watts.
So it's more efficient.
More efficient,
but
yeah.
also with the Swidget modules.
How much more efficient? How much
I'll
are
come
they
back.
reducing energy? How much like electricity consumption?
I'd have to look at the individual air handler. I couldn't tell.
100 watts probably.
Several.
I don't know, for just the fan alone.
Yeah.
We're talking, I don't know what we're talking about exactly, but
Yeah.
it's less for sure. But also, if you're taking like a 4-ton, which is what they're running
Right.
in this, two tons, a 4-ton system only runs, it has an air handler that's 1600 CFM, and they're using 2700 CFM.
Right.
A variable speed air handler solves that problem.
No, it won't.
No,
'cause
he's
it's
saying
packaged.
they're running like almost double the airflow.
It's like a
The
lot.
capacity, but he's saying if you put a full-on air handler, a encapsulated air handler in it, you can get a bigger fan. But as soon as you go to the bigger fan, you wind up more fan energy, right? We're trying to diminish the
variable fan, a variable blower, a variable.
Even-
4-ton, yeah, 4-ton would be paired with a 1600 CFM max fan, and they're doing 2700, like almost double what. So you could do as much airflow as you want. It's a way of decoupling the
It's a way of decoupling
the blower and the heat exchange. Yeah, it's like I think that's
Yeah, it's just
What I was going to say is with the Swidgets, you can put a sensor in every room, and each room can have its own fan. So
it'll boost it.
So it's you can like.
So it's not just
the
zoned,
zoning
is
can
it?
be like more modular. It could be like more easily specifically zoned with these fans.
So, but the zoning occurs that we're doing, the variable will be in the air quality, not in the temperature. The temperature, I've got a certain value in that room. I'm going to just speed that up. It's still the same value.
Right.
But if, let's say I had, 2 kids in a bedroom and and they close their door at night to go to sleep,
really
that
hot.
Swidget's going to see the CO2 load
It'll pull ventilation
and speed that up.
cooling into that.
Yeah, I know. So
I'm just imagining what 27 fans looks like.
it's
Or how much is Well, no, they're very quiet. I'm picturing.
no. It's literally they're five rows of 5 or 6 rows with 5 each, and then they have 2 on the bottom. Yeah, it's and I've seen them in the ceiling as well. They can do the ceiling, then they have a ladder style at a slope.
The ducting is, what'd you say, R6 6-inch?
R6 6-inch.
Regular flex duct? Not
Yep.
a special?
No,
And they're running the ducts between floors? Is that-
that's open web trussing.
Yeah.
That's part of the requirements.
Definitely has.
Yep.
You have some pictures of ductwork?
I do it. I'm trying to get there.
Sorry, we're excited.
Yeah. No, well, I appreciate that. I did want to talk about this one. This is that low temperature application where, we're sub 30 degrees. You're looking at, the blue was the air handler room, but you can see that, when the temperature goes down, the air handler room comes up, but the rooms still stay the same because there is some heat loss between the,
So where's the primary thermostat? Is it only in that mechanical room?
in the mechanical room you have, so my guy has a little smart tablet. It tells you what temperature.
Because you're moving
And there is
so
one
much
there's
air.
one on the outside of that room.
You're moving so much air all the time.
It doesn't matter where it's
Yeah,
at.
exactly.
Yeah, I will say that here was what does matter. I never want a thermostat on an exterior wall.
Yeah, oh, sure.
Okay, that's the only thing
Wow.
let me jump, I have one more.
Hey, that's the end.
Well, wait a minute, no, I got the data sheets.
So like two things that I just want, put out to the group that I think that we would be interested in.
Okay.
Is how do you keep the mechanical room from getting freezing ice cold on the walls and therefore then becoming a condensation risk? And 27 fans, I'm picturing like an array of 27 Panasonic Whisper Greens on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make sure that the flow of the two in this little closet, that the actual, if there's 2,700 CFM moving through this little tiny room, the air is moving pretty fast.
Right.
So maybe it's that we don't have enough time for the air to hang out to actually cool any of the surfaces in the room. But in that case, how does it get into every single one of the 27 fans?
So it's an air curtain that comes, the DHP register heads are going to be in front of the fans. So the air is going to come through, goes past the DHP, and then to the fans. And then we're testing every single fan on completion. Every fan has to get tested. Part of this whole process, and that's somewhat invasive to the builder, is I'm going to send a guy to your house, and he's going to test the fan in, he's going to test the fan out. He's going to come in 3 times until you've done at least one house, if not 2, and he's going to look at pre and post and test.
Who is that a mechanical contractor or a Panasonic?
That's one of my guys, my engineers, my little propeller head guys. Yeah.
You guys didn't get a hiring freeze.
He's an expat.
Nice.
He's paid for by
one
Japan.
Guy?
Well, no, I have 3. I have 3, but they're expats. They're not on my salary.
Okay.
They're not on my payroll.
The other thing is, I just did some math on like a 15 by 18 by 10 foot room.
Mm-hmm.
You would be sending, if you're doing 3.5 air changes per hour in there.
For the house?
No, for that room.
Oh, I'm sorry, for the room. Yeah.
Room would be 121 CFM, which can't fit under the door. So you're gonna have to do a return
So it's
in that room.
So it's a 1-inch door. All the doors are mandated to be 1 inch.
But that's only 75 CFM. So you still
1-inch undercut on a 30-inch door?
Yeah. On a 30 inch, you can only get like 66 or something like that. But anyway, so you
Really?
get a deficit of about 60. So you're gonna have to do on that room a return.
There
or
are
jumper duct or something.
some of them are jumper duct, and we have, and I was going to show you pictures,
But
but
I think that the design,
I have to look at that.
why you wouldn't just do it, is like you'd have to really be anal about every single.
I'm telling you, these guys are. You've never met our Japanese guys.
You're relying on the undercuts for the return.
Not on every room, though. As Corbett said, there are jumper ducts on it. Yeah, there are jumper ducts. Not on every room, but there are jumper ducts.
Because the door undercut does do like.
Yeah, but they did move it to a 1-inch.
A door sock on there instead.
It's in the warranty. 60-year warranty, no socks on the underside of the door, no towels.
Actually, they show all sorts of doors, and I'm like,
I'd like to see that warranty.
I'd like to see the warranty too.
You don't have it?
I don't have it.
Oh, okay.
Well, I have it in Japanese, but they haven't done a U.S. one. I mean, this is only 3 weeks old.
Do you have pictures?
Yes. Yes.
You had fire safety people look at this, had they concerned, and you addressed anything about, fire spread?
It's everything communicates. It's like a house that everything's communicating. So, it's only 2-story. I think if we went over 3 stories, that would be problematic. But in 2 stories, everything communicates. So.
Has this only been worked on in residential so far?
Residential.
You did a multifamily.
Panasonic does multifamily in Japan. I believe it'll work just fine in multifamily. And I'm working on a multifamily project with that homemade with the duplexes. We're a long ways away. We're 3 weeks old on this.
No commercial tests so far, no commercial applications.
Not from Panasonic.
Any reason to think that it can progress into that?
It's just a function of math, right? Airflow, heat, envelope.
Are you extracting from the bathrooms?
I have both exhaust and I'm jumper duct.
Really?
Yep, and supply. I'm putting a supply in the bathroom.
Wait, you have an exhaust fan? You mean a bath exhaust
Yes.
fan?
Yes.
Okay. But pressures might be weird in the house.
Wonky, but the bath fan's intermittent. So, but yes, that's a hole on the wall. Exactly. I know. We talked about that. Well, I don't need them to test it. Anybody can test it and see that there's air going out of there, right? I mean,
but the pressure, like the depressurization of the house.
Hey guys,
that's my main
that's
thing.
about time. Y'all have
Yeah.
questions for Ken, or do you have what do you want?
I was looking for I've got this, hang on, let me see. Here's a floor map, so to speak. No, you can't really see it that well. Let me see if I can open that up.
How many of these do you have installed?
Japan, they do about 2,000 a year for the last 10 years on this. I mean, there's a ton of them. We have whole developments where we have whole developments where we use this style only. and we have partners, single family. Almost everything in this application in Japan, the ones I've seen are single family. So we have a big development there for that. Okay, so essentially you can see on the upstairs, here's your air handler room. And so this is the open room. This was the problematic area that we had for that big, huge open room. Of course, Curtis, the builder, he wanted to put a big old fan up there, a recirc fan. I'm like,
So did they do a manual J on the house?
Mm-hmm.
And then how did they, manual J isn't really built for doing
it was a little wonky, and I don't know who did that. So Toner Home Matters did the energy modeling, and they're very good. But I don't know. There was some imagination, I think. Yeah, there was. It's all right.
While you're doing it, why 3.5? What? Because in a way, that's driving the whole. I keep going back to. That's a whole lot of bath fans, right? Why 2,700? Why? Because the target is 3.5 air changes. What's magic about 3.5 per space?
I don't know that answer.
Old dudes like to aim for, right? 4 air change per hour. COVID classroom standard is 5 air change per hour.
Right, right. Yeah. But in residential, I know it's a little less, but yeah. I don't know that answer.
Is it by an IAQ desire? Is it driven by, some sort of energy? Obviously, I think the thing that's so cool is that you have continuous airflow. So like you said, the temperature is very consistent.
Well, and I think that's part of that calculation, right? When you look at your R16 walls, I think it's R38 ceilings, and remember they're doing like zip R on the zip R3 on the outside to make it super tight and whatnot, which I thought it would be tighter than 1.6 when I was watching it being built, but it's all about how much envelope temperature change can occur that I need to null, right? So I've got all these windows in there. Every window is oversized. Every door is oversized. 10-foot ceilings. I mean, it's Texas. So that's the airspeed required to keep enough BTUs in motion. This is my answer to you. I'll have to call Kei Kasamoto and ask, Kei, where'd you pull that number out of? I can tell you why 0.35 air changes per hour is the magic number for ventilation. Yeah.
Is the Nano X required on this, or is
that all of the equipment is defined by Panasonic, and they're always going to use a Nano X on there.
What is it on?
On the ductless head.
It's on the ductless head, inside of it.
Yep. And it's 10 times the size of the one that we showed at the thing. No, but it's all gone within seconds. You'll never have a hydroxyl radical leave that space. But it's across a piece.
Because it turns into something else.
Because it turns into something else. Exactly.
What's Nano X?
Nano X is it's a hydroxyl radical generator that gives a charge to anything in that hydrogen space and the air space. It just nulls stuff in the air. We're not supposed to say kill. We can't say kill. We can't even say, what was the one thing they also told us?
It's a chemical reactor. It's actually slightly more reactive than those.
Yeah, but
it sounds like it doesn't.
But it becomes benign. It becomes benign really quick.
With chemicals in the space. Sorry,
no, go ahead.
Know this,
yeah,
I was at this HVAC symposium in Florida last week, and pretty much everybody there is on board with filtration,
right?
Active air cleaning, bad, no matter what it is. Like, I'm sorry.
I don't disagree necessarily. Please.
But basically, you can't predict what chemicals are in a home because different deodorants, different whatever. And then this thing reacts them into something else, which we also can't predict at that point. And so it's just risky. That's the weird part of the magic that we're trying to, have to address. But filtration, I will tell you every day, start with filtration.
Yes.
It's just painful. And I will.
No pictures of the walls.
Yes, I do. I just have to find them.
I gotta believe there's pictures of that.
There's pictures of freaking everything, and I got so much crap on my thing.
Just a quick interesting thing that Ken shared with me. Panasonic has never made an HRV. You'll hear a lot of HVAC guys be like, oh, HRV, because that's what they have in stock down at the supply house.
Yeah.
And ERV all the way, it's like, I'm firmly convinced ERV. I've used an HRV in most climates on our tiny house, and as soon as I swapped out the core with an ERV core, everything was much better. And I was like, so that was great. So anyway, you guys have never made an HRV, and you test the ERVs in Fairbanks, Alaska at the cold climate.
At Cold Climate Research, yeah. So, and there's a, I mean, I hate to get distracted by shiny ventilation things, but I will tell you also that when you do fans, no matter what, you exit the house with a 4-inch. Every fan manufacturer will give you a hug if you use a 6-inch duct, correct? Because that lowers the static. But at the end of the house, whether it's in the roof or the sidewall, go to 4-inch. And I say that because at cold climate, one of the things that we tested was,
it out faster?
no, but one of the things we tested was how fast stuff would come in, right? So having that 4-inch restricts the temperature flow back down the duct. So it was 15 feet and 45 feet, it changed the temperature flow by 15 feet before it became like, it was minus 15 degrees outside, and I think it was, yeah, it was minus 15 degrees outside, and 6-inch duct had it minus temperatures all the way back to the fan at 30 feet, and 4-inch duct had it minus temperatures or positive temperatures at 15 feet, because it didn't allow that cold temperature to run back up. So we have that problem in cold climate where we have condensation sensing fans, right? So people will call me up, 2 things. I get 2 calls. My fan is leaking, or my condensation sensing fan is running all the time. So the fan is leaking, right? It's because you have hot, humid air in the house, and you have this thermal bridge to the fan, and then the homeowner goes up there and knocks all the insulation off the fan to see what's going on, and now that can gets even colder because the attic space is bringing that cold air in, or the condensation sensor says, I'm gonna have condensation, I'm gonna turn on, I'm gonna run for 6 weeks. And it's okay to let it run for 6 weeks because it prevents that water from dripping from inside the house down. In a hot, humid climate, it would behoove you to make sure you have a good damper on that outside, because you want to keep that water vapor from coming back in, because as, I don't know who was here earlier, we were talking about it, where the microwave fills full of water, the dryers fill full of water. That's one of the products I'm hammering on Panasonic, is a powered damper to put at the surface level to shut that air off, so that when you...
If you turn the ERV off.
If you turn anything off, whether it's the bathroom fan or the ERV or anything that goes out, even the range hood needs to have that damper out there so you don't get that hot, humid moisture moving back into your air-conditioned house and then phase changing. One more thing I want to talk about before we can take a break and I'll find these other videos, but codes, bathrooms and ERVs, okay? So there are very specific code requirements, mechanical code requirements, about using an ERV to pick up out of a bathroom. So I will tell you right now, it's all jurisdiction sensitive, depends on your jurisdiction, but the mechanical code is explicit that a bathroom exhaust fan is an exhaust fan, and that should not be re-entrained back into anything else. The ERV has a return air port from inside the house, not an exhaust air port. So I have had inspectors bounce projects because they went from a bathroom back to the ERV. I will tell you that I'm absolutely okay coming out of a powder room back to the ERV. I'm absolutely okay with that. So the shower part of it, you want to be careful, because I'm okay with the shower if the ERV never gets shut off. But I've had an incident not long ago where they shut the ERV off after the shower. The core was full of excessive moisture and they stopped the airflow. And remember, I have a cold airstream and a hot airstream full of moisture. It phase changed in the core and dribbled. So there's all sorts of weird caveats about that, right? So,
so code might say something that
very explicit
is dumb.
Is dumb.
And our job is to change the code, because those guys don't understand.
I am on the TAG committee for Washington State for the mechanical code and for the residential code, and that's a discussion we've had, and I was shouted down by the city of Seattle about why this has to be, and they're saying, oh, no, it's very specific exhaust.
I became a convert though from Terry Brennan converted me to his religion of not pulling ERV from a shower bathroom.
Right.
And I agree about the powder room. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Just because if you think about it, the bath fan's job is to get moisture out, and in our
Right.
climate, if it's pulling moisture out of the bathroom and then dumping it in, that moisture is transferring into the airstream coming back in. That sort of defeats.
It's still going to lift that moisture load throughout the house.
It's moving it and distributing
Right, it's
it.
just
There's no question
distributing.
about it, but I can't say I've ever seen failures of people that didn't.
They shut it off. That's where I got my phone call. I'm like,
But be careful, like my house, I'm not a good builder. And I built a 0.4 ACH 50 house. A 50 CFM bath fan would do 3.5 pascals of depressurization on my whole house, which would 100% backdraft a fireplace if there was one.
well, yeah, we're not talking about a combustion device in this mix.
I know,
But
but even like the vented dryer, like you're putting
Yeah.
put a vented
Yep.
dryer 150 CFM, into an airtight house. So that's where I think
Right.
that balanced ventilation at a certain airtightness, you just have to use an ERV. You can't use bath fans because bath fans are too much of a
Well,
lift.
the question though is, how do you feel about pulling, if you have a balanced ventilation system, how do you feel about pulling air from a room with a shower?
We're gonna go to my house in September. So you can see a house that's been lived in for 4 months, you can smell it. I have a litter box in my front hall. You guys can walk in and see if you smell the litter box, 5 CFM into the ERV from the litter box. So there's
Yeah,
ways to do
yeah.
this. And if you haven't done it yourself and lived with
So
it,
here's the
it's
problem.
really hard to be like, oh, well, do I believe it or not?
But here's the problem, and this is a problem for all the builders out here, right? When you're building houses for the public. When I talk to passive home builders, and it's like, the challenge with a passive home is it's like, with most of our buyers, and remember there was a national statistic that the first time home buyer is now 38 years old. He's never lived in his own house till he's 38 years old. I had 2 houses by the time I was 26. Holy cow. But it's like taking a 15-year-old boy and teaching him to drive in a Maserati or a Ferrari, right? It's a high-performance house. The first thing you'll see is he's got his freaking Sawzall out there cutting a dog door into your nice clean wall so the dog can go out. You're an educated owner. And unfortunately, oftentimes we have to build to an uneducated owner and make that house perform because you're on the hook for how many years, right? It's like 3 years, I think you're on speed dial. So I agree. You can do everything right and make it work perfect. We don't get to live in that world.
Educate the normal people.
No, I agree. We got to educate. Yeah.
Is one of the services that you can have something that sense negative pressure, so you can kind of have an automated makeup air situation?
So all of our ERVs, and I can't speak for other brands, but all of ours, you can adjust the balancing. In this climate, I would always tell you to run a positive pressure on your ERV. However, when I say a positive pressure, it's like 10 CFM. It's not going to satisfy a dryer at 200 CFM. It might satisfy the intermittent application on a bath fan if it's only running for 10 or 20 minutes because you've got all that space in the house, but no.
Okay, so you're not sensing that. It can't, somebody left on a fan and now there's a bunch of negative pressure somewhere weird.
Well, so remember that Corbett's house is really tight. In a house, let's say you've got a house that's 1,000 square feet with an 8-foot ceiling. That's 8,000 cubic feet of air. And you've tested that to 1 air change per hour. 8,000 cubic feet of air per hour, right? So I can get 8,000 cubic feet of air in from the outside into that every hour at 50 pascals. A bath fan at 50 CFM, if it runs for an hour, 5 times, that's 3,000 CFM. I barely, 1/3 of the cubic footage of that house. It's not going to pull the windows in. But when you get that 0.4, now it's a different story. And it's not just whether it'll draw that air in, because usually what happens is the fan just won't be able to get enough air out. But it'll, if you have combustion devices, that's a problem. If you have a gas fireplace, that's a problem. I don't care if it's a sealed gas fireplace. If you have anything that's combustion in your house, whether it's sealed or not, and you depressurize, you have the potential. And you always want to think about the potential, because when the potential comes true, it's a problem.
Guys, I'm just going to wrap up here. Y'all can stay and have conversations.
Yeah, let me find some more stuff.
Everyone who works at the South Basin probably wants to get home. Thank you, Ken. This was awesome. Great. Love the discussion. This was really fun. So hang out until Mike kicks us out, have your own conversation. Next month, I'm going to host a panel discussion with Chris, Allison, and Carl on Passive House. So we'll send out invites, but it should be another good discussion. Again, thank y'all for being here. Thank you for Walker Plans for being here. Thank you for great discussion. This was fun.
Excellent. Ken, can you send me anything? Can you make a video? Can you send me anything?
Yeah.
We found that it's been good to go around and do the intros, so we're going to do that again. I'll start, and we'll just kind of weave through 30 seconds, your name, or maybe not even 30 seconds, just name, company, and if you have a quick blurb, we'll go through it. But Stephen Sanders Myers, Brightwater Homes, we build here in Atlanta and Charleston, and focus on sustainable building.
Matt Roots with Sawhorse. Dana Meets also with Sawhorse and studying in architecture.
Awesome. David Wasserman, been mostly retired, but still doing some energy modeling.
You could be tired, but not retired.
I'm Mike Marshall. Welcome. I'm going to cheat you to 30 seconds.
No, you got us.
No, I'm just going to say, picture if you will, we had this vision of what 2025 was going to look like, and we had this training grant and all this stuff figured out. And we are scrambling a little bit, so we have a bunch of classes that I am shamelessly plugging up here. And either you can attend, or you can maybe help us get folks in our classes. So thank you. But the next one coming up is DET Verifier, followed by hers. So thank you so much. Thanks for letting us be a part of this.
I'm Mary Ashley with Walker Plans, and I think we'll get to tell you a little bit about ourselves in just a minute.
I'm Mark Brown.
I'm Adrian Lane, former Craft House here and back in the day, Jackson to Right Choice. But I do believe we take care of the earth, so the earth takes care of us, because if we don't, it's going to be historic agony like it's happened in Los Angeles. 12% of Los Angeles is gone now. 60 square miles is gone, out of 493, that's 12%. So thankfully, Matt Hoots, I know, and he hooked me up with James, the architect. I am determined to bring to this city. Take styrofoam when you're done with it, grind up little bits, mix it with Portland cement and a bonding agent. Make a building block that will stand up to almost anything. With rebar, fresh concrete, a metal roof, or something that doesn't burn. Those houses in LA would have been a lot better off. If not, maybe unscathed. If
We're looking for sponsors for next month.
Love it. I'm Dar Kaushi, owner of Kaushi Custom Homes.
Chris Keenan, I teach heating and air at Chattahoochee Technical College.
I'm Joe Adams. I am an architect, but I'm kind of here as just a nerd, as building science nerd. I'm actually having a house built, LG Square, and that is over here. All right.
Stacy Sabatsky, his wife, but also with the Museum of Contemporary Art of Georgia, and we're building a building of our own.
That's awesome.
I'm Lander Stoddard. I'm a homeowner and a building science enthusiast. I am about to do a small addition on my house, and I'm looking for contractors who have experience with zip windows. So if you know anybody or you are interested,
If you know what SIP means, that's a good start.
That's right. We got all the branding going here.
SIP or zip?
Sam Fulton, program manager here at South Bay for the design consulting. All right.
I'm James Marlowe. I'm president of South Bay. Welcome. So glad to have you here tonight. We appreciate this exchange of ideas and appreciate the sponsors and folks that came tonight. So thank you.
Carl Seville, SK Collaborative, we certified buildings, mostly multifamily buildings.
Jeffrey Sauls, Energy Vanguard, we do building science consulting and HVAC design.
Jessica Minch, I work for Power distribution engineer, but going for high performance home personal projects and things.
Cool, welcome.
Asha McQueen, I'm just here to learn.
Welcome.
Andrew Stoyer with EcoMech. We're kind of a full service mechanical contractor with a green energy technology focus. So geothermal heating and air is kind of our bread and butter, but we do all sorts of fun stuff.
Afton, EcoMech as well, here to learn. I'm James Perch, licensed architect and getting into the construction side of things, and about half this room has been on my podcast. So the rest of you can get on the podcast and come and see us.
Ted Cater, USC Logic, we do multifamily consulting as well.
Court Lunsford, Building Performance Workshop, and Home Performance YouTube channel and Home Diagnosis TV series.
Nice. Welcome.
Chris Lumbergin, I'm a glutton for punishment and an overthinker.
Hey, Chris, I got that on camera.
Isn't that the definition of passive house?
I'm also with LG Squared, architect, consultant, HVAC designer, and GC, something around that, something like that.
Cool. Chris Knight, I own New South Homes.
Ken Nelson with Panasonic. I've been there about 18 years on the ventilations IAQ side. I currently am going around the country talking about our OASYS HVAC system and ERVs, how they work, why they work, where they work, and why they make sense in almost every single climate.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it. All right, so a few minutes before that